Hello, welcome to another Blender Sushi video tutorial. Um, I don't usually do much of video tutorial, but these days I feel like I should give it a go. And the topic I will cover today will be the animation nodes. It's one of my favorite Blender plugins or add-on from Jack's Luke, and yeah, it's really powerful node-based system that's that's I think for anyone who wants to start to play around with a node-based system before they jump into something like Houdini or Maya. No, I mean maybe just Houdini. They should probably try and play around with blenders first because they're both powerful and they both are quite different. And I like how Jack's kind of approach the node-based system with the animation node inside Blender. And today I'll be trying to cover about object instances, like to make clones inside Blender. This is probably gonna be like a basic or perhaps intermediate level. Sometimes I don't quite get. I still not 100% sure with the looping inside animation nodes, but I kind of touching here and there. Sometimes I kind of play around and I get a setup that's working, and then sometimes it doesn't quite work, and I probably need to ask Jax himself or ask at the animation nodes forum. Alright, let's just give it a go. We'll just explore animation nodes together and see what's gonna come out. So let's make sure we have animation nodes add-on installed. I have here version 1.6. I like this version a lot. It's got a lot of cool updates. It's a lot faster as well. And you probably want to use this version because the object instancing in this version is much better than before. Okay, let's get started. If you get this view, the default view layout, you might want to switch to compositing. So you have this area to put all your nodes tree. I'll make this full screen. Okay, we don't really need this part. So we have this. We can hide this, press M, put it in layer number 2. And right, we can leave this here for now. It's probably gonna be a text editor at some point. So we got a cube, and we're gonna switch on the animation node, and we can get started. Let's create a new node 3. Inside this node 3 is empty blank space. What do we need to do? We're trying to create a clone of this cube. Let's say, how do we gonna do that? Let's try search instance, object instancer. Now let's grab this object using the eyedropper tool. So we got our cube, and let's see. let's make something that's really simple first, like instances here. At the moment it's 0. Let's say we create 10 instances. We actually have 10 cubes on top of each other. They're copies of the original cube, which is this one. And what do we gonna do? In order to see all the cube, they shouldn't be in the same position. So let's create like a random vector positions for each one of the cube instances. We will obviously transform the object. So my guess is we can use object transforms output, and let's say logically you want this, and you want to transform your object, right? So let's say you want to plug this in. Yep. And there you go. I'm actually moving one of the instances and if that's the one with index 0. Now if I switch to the one at index 1, I can move that one as well. That's interesting, but we don't really want to do that for 10 different cubes. Now, whenever you have something like this and you see like a faded dots there, like a gray 50% alpha transparency, that means you have a list, right? List of object. And with list of objects, you can't just plug it into nodes like this. Most of the nodes inside animation nodes, it will work for individual objects unless you use loop, and loops is really powerful in animation nodes. You kind of want to understand how the loop works. Okay, let me just show you how to do the loop. Sometimes I still don't quite get this to work 100% all the time, but let's see. So we don't want this to happen, right? We want the list of object, and we want a loop that does something to the list of object for each of the object, and then we want the output, right? So that's what we're gonna do. We will need an object. Sometimes I just use the iterator. Sometimes you need to use the generator output, but let's try the iterator. So we have this loop object thingy, and the important part is actually the subprogram, the invoke subprogram here. It's called my loop because that's the default. And so we got this thing, but there's another like components of the loop that I use all the time, which is this new generator output thing. And we have something like this. Usually the way I work, that's the part that you need to worry about. These two will be the thing you want to do with each of the object right here. It's gonna go through the loop and over for each item here to get whatever we want, basically. So for what we're trying to do, we can cut this part. So we don't need this. We cut it. Let's kill this. Press X. We plug the objects here. So object list goes into object list, and then we want to, let's see, plug the object here, and let's say, so we want a random vector, and let's see, okay, there is actually a node called a random vector. Now, because we are already we have this kind of loop setup going on, if we see there's an attribute or parameter called index right here. It will go from 0 up to the total of the number of the instances, total number of objects, basically your object list that you're plugging into the loop. If we plug this into the seed, obviously we will have the total number of random vector based on the total number of the object list. The way we can see that is by using debugging tool here, debug loop. Let's have a look. Create a new text. The output is going to be a text, and then there's this is in version 1.6. You can click on this thing, and you have this really cool, like a target area where you want to create the text editor, basically. Click here. There you go. You get we have 10 random vector for our cube. Good. Now all we need to do is just plug this into location, and it doesn't work, or maybe I forgot. Always forgot this thing. We shouldn't plug this there, okay? That's really dangerous. You can try, but that's what we want. So we have this thing going on. Sometimes, see all these lines? That's because by default the animation nodes will create some kind of hierarchy system. If you look at the underneath here, under the outliner, that's the instance copy we just generated. But yeah, that thing, because of that hierarchy, we're getting all those lines. We can actually get rid of it by going into display and turn off relationship lines. And if you don't want to have the grid, you can turn it off here. You can keep the axis like that. Yeah, that's really cool. I'll just save it for save it as save it on the desktop. an instancing 001. Save Blender file. Very cool. Now, okay, well, let's see. So yeah, that's one example of how we can set up instancing using loop. So we started with this object instancer, and we specify the objects we want to have instances, which is the cube, and we specify the number of instances, and then we create this sub program thing, the loop. Basically, that's the loop, and then we just everything inside the loop will basically generate whatever number of, it will loop like as many times as the object list that you specify right here. So let's say you want to kind of wiggle, let's have like 20. My computer is not, my laptop is really old. It's like from year 2010. I'm using MacBook Pro, and it can be slow, but still working. Let's say you want to have this box to wiggle around. There's a node called, we have a bunch of nodes for wiggle actually. Number wiggle, vector wiggle, Euler wiggle for rotation. Let's try vector wiggle. We can just leave two on the side. So basically the part right here is kind of like what's happening here. Vector wiggle, I believe we can simply plug in the index into the seed, and with vector we can plug this here, and we have like a wiggling objects, or we can actually use add, vector add, math vector math. Yep, we can add this random vector position. So we already have the position, right? And we have the wiggle vector, and we add those two together, and for the result, there you go. So that's really cool. That's what we want. We can hide the original cube. You can actually yeah, we can hide this thing. We can, for example, use like a torus. Let's just use torus, because this is like a node-based system, right? We can always make a tweak, change the original source at any time, like that. Just really cool. Let's just use torus for now. We can use time frame, time info node, my favorite. plug this into evolution. The frame here is actually a fractional value. It's not integer. That goes from this frame number is exactly following the number right here, but it actually goes into subframes, so you kind of get a fractional value as well, and so you can have like a smooth animation when you play it back. Let's increase the speed. That's the wiggle. Wiggle is really cool. In fact, why don't we add a rotation as well? Rotation vector wiggle, Euler wiggle. This part will get really complex. After a while it gets really complex, and you still know what's happening, but it's gonna be so complex that you don't care anymore, because every step you do to create this procedural setup, you it's all here, right here, right? And you know, okay, this part is doing what, like this index is going into vector wiggle, and then okay, it's adding those numbers together, and as the total we use that as a to look to position our instancing, for example. Now we have the Euler wiggle, and the same thing, I'm gonna use the index plug into the seed. Evolution, we can do the same. Euler rotation. Let's see if this works. Is that Euler? Yes, Euler. Euler is cool. Rotation, speed. Are you rotating? Yeah, kind of rotating. Okay. We have some kind of like a UFO floating. And the cool thing is everything is procedural, you see. With procedural setup like this, you can tweak anything at any time, right? You can have unlimited variations, and you can add layers of complexity. Even though this setup is really simple, sometimes understanding the simple setup like this can help you to go further. This might not be too practical, but I think you might be able to use something like this for whatever you're going to do. So I'll save this before it crashes. File, save as. If you hit the plus button here, it will go up. If it's red color, that means there's already a file with that name. Just change it, save. Next, let's see, what do we do next? I'll just save it again. What we can do here, we can actually use text, and this object instancer is actually quite powerful in itself. If I uncheck this thing, boom, we still have everything moving and stuff, because we have a transformation data, but we can change it into text, and we have like crazy text floating around. File, save this. and each of the tags actually can become like a separate individual tags with different scale, different, it's already have like different rotation and positional value. Let's say how do we change the actual text? Actually, this is actually I haven't done this, but I will give it a go. Text block list, text block list. I think that's what we need. Alright, text. No, maybe not text, but it's more like string list. Let's give it, let's apple, banana, durian, orange, mango. 5 of my favorites fruits, and object, text object. Text object output. Object text. We already have the text object right here. Let's see what happens if I plug this into that and plug this into text. Aha! One of the texts become the fruit text that I specify right here. So we have something going on here. So, but we want it to be inside the loop, right? We don't want this get list element happening everywhere. Whenever we see something like this, and we have bunch of objects we want to edit or to process with animation nodes, we need to turn this into a loop. So I will just cut this thing, delete it, and we will go up here. Let's see if this actually works. Objects, plug this, plug the object here. Everything disappear. Text. Text index. Okay, so we can use something like this. If we just plug in the index into from there to there, we will get only 5 text. That's right. Why is this happening? Because we only give this 5 lists of text, like a fruit text. We want a way to grab a random fruit name from this list and plug it into this list. What we can do is we can create a random value, random number, and since we have 5 texts here, total number of 5 number, we can use this random number and generate a total number of whatever text objects we have right here. So we plugged in the index into the seed, and Let's have a look at the loop, debug loop. What number do we have? Guess. Fractional number. We have floating list of floats. Don't worry, we can always use float to integer, converting floating numbers into integer, whole number. Okay, great. We have 0, 2, 4. We have those numbers generated. Now we can use the number. Simply plug that number into the index. There we go. We have what we want. Let's just let's hide this thing. I think 1.6. With 1.6, with animation nodes version 1.6, you can hit tab, and with tab you kind of quickly jump from the loop. That's really cool. Let's say so again, we started from object instancer, right? It was the cube, but now it's a text, and it's solely generated from this one node, and we have 20 text objects. Each of them is a full text objects. You can increase the number of the text, and no matter what, it will continue to generate random fruit names that you specify. That's because of the setup we have up there. That's how you probably want to approach instancing inside animation nodes. You can definitely go deeper. Like, this is one example where, hey, where I tried, what if we have bunch of text, bunch of string, and we want each text to have like a random text like this, and you kind of try, and somewhat this loop will do the works for you. Maybe by rewatching this video tutorial, you will see it's kind of makes sense, because whenever, like I said, whenever you have like the get element node happening, that means you have a bunch of objects and you want to operate and process each of the item inside the list. You will need to use loop, right? By keeping that in mind, I'm pretty sure you can create even more complex setup than this. Yeah, so let's play this, make this, turn it into full screen. You want it prettier, probably only render, turn on only render, and turn on matcap. Yes. That's it. I think that's the setup for, that's one that's one way you would approach object instancing inside animation nodes. This is probably really simple example, but hopefully it's useful for you, and until next time. Thank you for watching.